Good afternoon to everyone. Good Sunday afternoon to everyone here at the Voice of College Football. We can't proceed today without acknowledging the situation in Ukraine. Our thoughts, more than that, our prayers and any tangible support should go in that direction. So that's all I will say about that. It's obviously a sobering situation and a troubling situation, and just highlights the evils of this world, in particular people and forces in this world. All right, on to the topic at hand, which is college football. So anytime I raise a topic, keep in mind that once we open up the phone lines, we are open to talk college football with you. Anything is on the table concerning college football. Even though I present a topic, we don't have to talk about that topic. But what is on my mind concerning college football, so many other things on my mind that are much more important, but concerning the game of college football, first and foremost, right now in this offseason, during a bit of a dead period as spring practice is starting across the country. And of course, lock it in here at the Voice of College Football. We've already previewed so many teams and spring practice, offense, defense, and special teams for the likes of Texas A&M, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and others. Clemson included, USC, and others. Okay. I, as an American, believe in the American way. The American way is free speech, free enterprise. And this NIL situation and transfer portal speak to freedoms in this country. The freedom to earn a living and prosper. The freedom to move, to switch employment, to switch education. I am in full support, full defense. We'll honor those things, cherish those values as part of our Constitution and our way of life, freedom. If you are aware of what's going on in this country, you understand that our freedoms are being challenged every day by some people are just, I believe, incompetent. Others know exactly what they're doing. So they're being challenged, but also, to be more blunt, sabotaged at times. So freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of choice being sabotaged. So let's look at college football, and freedoms need to be held accountable. And also we need to be responsible within those freedoms. Of course, there has to be a sense of responsibility. Freedom of speech. We all learned when we were kids in grade school. Who knows what they're teaching them now? I get some indications from time to time every few days, and it's not good. But anyway, that's another subject. In grade school, that yes, you've got freedom of speech. That's our primary right in this country, freedom of speech. But you don't yell fire in a crowded theater. Okay. So let's address NIL in college football and transfer portal. I will give you my suggestions on what can be done. And I've mentioned these things before, but I've added to them in terms of what stipulations I believe and guidelines should be placed on NIL and the transfer portal to bring this into a balance. Okay, right now, NIL and transfer portal on the surface are good for the student athlete and are certainly within their rights as American citizens. Is the transfer portal good for college football? In general, no. Is NIL good for college football in general? In general, no. But there's a way to harness these things to a certain extent. Okay. So let's address NIL. Let's address these ugly colors. Let's do that too. Let's do that. Okay. My apologies to Iowa fans, but yeah, no yellow and black on MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football. NIL guideline number 1. This is the first issue that came to mind when we were talking NIL before it was unveiled and unleashed last July. For me, was first and foremost I wanted to keep, and I believe that we should, as much as we possibly can, keep the integrity of the recruiting process and the choice of the student athlete on where they're going to go to school. That's supposed to be first and foremost. Go to school, because some of these guidelines and conditions I'm going to present, many people would say that view this as a professional sport. You know what? Why should they have to do that or abide by this guideline or that guideline? Okay, let them go off to the NFL. Let's waive the rule concerning eligibility for the NFL if we can get the NFL to also agree to that. And you know what? Let them go off and try to play as 18-year-olds in the NFL. Go right ahead. If you want to go to the Atlanta Falcons camp as an 18-year-old and try out, go right ahead. Okay, let them deal with that. So let's understand that this is still an amateur sport, and it's still connected to school. It's not necessarily an amateur sport because there's the ability to earn money outside of a salary structure within the school and within the football program. It's outside the program. So it's actually within the sport, still an amateur sport. As far as abiding by the rules, it is an amateur sport still. And it's connected to eligibility at a school, going to class, earning grades. There are still rules in play that a team can only practice a certain number of hours per week, for example. That's tied to the balance that the institutions want to create between school and athletics. Okay. Now, those rules apply in the professional ranks as well, but it's tied to workers' rights and unionizing and demanding that they can only be worked a certain amount of time, just like any other union industry component and effort in protecting the rights of the individual. Okay. So first and foremost, I want to keep the purity of the recruiting process and the student athlete's ability and their choice. Now, certainly they are going to know, based on common knowledge and based on what they hear and what they talk to people about, they are going to know which schools have the best resources and the most contacts with NIL suitors. However, much like we do not allow student athletes in college athletics to have interaction with contact with an agent, or they are ineligible to play college football. We'll keep it to football, but this is for sports across the board. I would institute the same guideline, the same rule. It's actually not a guideline. I list it as a guideline here because the NCAA is made up of guidelines, but they are actually rules. There's a difference between a rule and a guideline. These are actually rules that I propose, and the NCAA has NCAA rules. So the NIL rule here would be that there is to be no contact between a student athlete and a potential NIL entity until that student has committed, signed, enrolled, and attended class for a complete semester. Okay? Rule number one. And certainly, do we know that people are going to cheat? Yes, we know people are going to cheat. But if you get caught cheating, you're ineligible. Just like right now, we have seen it happen throughout the years. If a student athlete comes in contact and has known connection to an agent, they are immediately ineligible, and therefore they can no longer participate in college football, and they have to move on to the NFL. Now, this penalty would not be as harsh because this is at the outset or beginning of the individual's career and not the end of their career in college football. So suspend them for a season. Okay, suspend them for a season. But that's rule number one. These student athletes are going to make decisions as best as we can govern it. They're going to make decisions on where to go to school based on the school, the location, their relationships with the coaches, and the football prowess of the school and the facilities and so forth. Not based on NIL contracts. Okay. That's rule number one. NIL rule number two would be that there are going to be no contracts signed, no contact during spring practice or during the regular season, which will continue for me through the postseason, through bowl games, through the national championship game for that particular team. So if that team goes 5-7, they don't play in a bowl game. Well, as soon as they play their final regular season game, that particular student athlete on that team will be eligible to then sign NIL contracts. And because their season is over. So during the course of that particular player's season, from roughly August 1st, day one of August camp, all the way through the season, however long that lasts, through the national championship game or just through a regular season, no contact, no contracts with NIL. And then during spring practice, the same thing. For however long spring practice lasts, let's say March 10th through April 15th, no contact with NIL. Okay. Those are my two simple rules with NIL. Is that going to correct everything? Of course not. It's not even going to come close, but that's what I've got. That is at least going to curb the madness and allow these student athletes to focus on their education. Hopefully they do. Most of them do. Many do not, but most of them do. And then focus on football and deal with, they are 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. That they can have those business dealings when they are not engaged directly with football. During winter workouts, individual workouts in the summer, sure. But not with their team in the spring or during the regular season. Okay. Also with the transfer portal. Simple. A one-time transfer allowance without penalty. I do not pretend to be an expert on NCAA rules. I thought that this was already in play. I hear it talked about. Maybe somebody can look it up. I have not looked it up recently. I've looked it up, read about it, but I continue to see players who transfer multiple times. Now, there could be exceptions to this. And I don't want the exceptions to be abused. So my exceptions would be hardship type cases. Okay, let's say a particular player goes to a school for one season. They decide to transfer. They transfer without penalty under our stipulation there. And then after one season at said school, they have a family issue. And they are playing and going to school halfway across the country, and they want to move closer to their family. If they can prove the family issue, I want a documented, I want a clear-cut family or an issue that can be substantiated. That would be the exception. I don't want to be cruel in any such way or unyielding. Okay. You can transfer once without penalty. After that, there's a penalty to sit out a season unless there's a hardship. My other transfer portal rule, here it is. Many people have likened the transfer situation in college football to the NFL, saying, man, this is like NFL free agency. Yes, in a sense. I've even made that comment. Early on, I made that comment. Then I thought about it for about 30 seconds and thought, it's not like NFL free agency in that NFL free agency is under control. It is restricted. It is regulated. This is not regulated in any way. If a student athlete wakes up and just didn't like how he slept, got out of the bed on the wrong side of the bed, doesn't like the food at the cafeteria that day, had a fight with his girlfriend, doesn't like his teammate in the next locker, whatever reason, I'm going to transfer. Let's enter the transfer portal. Who knows how involved that is in regards to filling out paperwork for something online for probably about 32 seconds, and he's in the transfer portal. Okay. And he can do this at any time. Every player in the country today could enter the transfer portal. There's nothing that's been stated that I've seen that restricts number of transfers. Every player in the country could become a free agent, member of the transfer portal today, if they so choose. Okay. That's out of control. Now, we don't want to restrict how many players can, but let's restrict the time frame because there's really because they're not under contract like NFL players. You really can't restrict how many players enter the transfer portal like the NFL. Not every NFL player can declare for free agency every season. They're under contract. They have 3-year contracts, 5-year contracts, 7-year contracts. Therefore, there's only a small portion of the talent pool in the NFL that can be in the free agent market at any one time. Well, in college football, it could be 100%. In the NFL, 10%, something like that. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I would estimate that it's less than 10% of the players in the NFL can be free agents during the offseason. That's number one. Number two, there's only a certain amount of time. There's only a certain period of days given to NFL free agency in which a player can declare for free agency, doesn't have a contract any longer with his current team. And we won't go into the whole franchise tag and all the other things that have been stipulated or implemented, I should say, in the NFL to keep players and allow teams to keep certain players. Okay, that aside, that doesn't apply to college football. That again, roster management is difficult in college football and it's become crazy difficult for these coaching staffs. So we are allowing 2 transfer portal timeframes for 30 days, twice per year. After the end of that particular player's season, again, it doesn't have to be after the national championship game. If they didn't play that long, if they only played a regular season, their team did not make a bowl game, at whatever point that player's season is over, they've got 30 days to enter the transfer portal for 30 days. Okay, they can make that decision in 30 days. They can assess their situation, talk to their family, talk to their coach, their position coach. They can assess the situation and decide within 30 days whether they want to enter the transfer portal. Same thing after spring practice. That's a key time in which the stage is set for the regular season. The stage is set for August camp, and we see it and we'll see it here in the next 4 to 6 weeks where tons of players will enter the transfer portal because they have sized up where they stand with their team and they don't like where they stand with their team. And they have decided that they want to transfer. Okay. We'll give you 30 days after the conclusion of your team's spring practice, 30 days. Then after the season, after spring practice, 30 days. And basically that gives, because spring practice is over in late April, that allows all head coaches to know by roughly June 1st what they have to work with, what they need to do to prepare for the season. They've got 2 months before August camp. They've got 3 months before the season starts to understand this is our roster composition. That's it. That's what I've got for you. Let's put some restrictions on NIL, but still allow players to benefit and profit and prosper. Let's put some restrictions on the transfer portal, but restrict the craziness and the wild, wild west nature of the transfer portal and give these teams and these coaching staffs a fighting chance to manage their rosters. All right, let's fire up the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football. Also want to remind everyone that when you shop Amazon, please use the link in the description section. Also keep in mind, yes, we've got a Discord started. Go to Patreon, search MarkRogersTV. We've started Discord. If you don't know anything about Discord, I did not either about 2 or 3 months ago. It's basically a big chat room. So sign up at Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. Just go to Patreon, patreon.com, search Mark Rogers TV, and we will get you your Discord link like we already have about 25 people. And you can run on over there and we will talk college football. And I'm available at some point each and every day to talk college football with you, but you'll have a better time talking college football with our other voice of college football folks. We've got live streams all over the place. Of course, Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, West Virginia. Did I miss anyone? Throughout the week. So join our live streams each and every day. We'd love to have you as a sponsor here at the Voice of College Football. Hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. I will let you know how we can benefit you. And our Notre Dame channel is just about 40 away from 1,000. Please head on over to the Notre Dame channel on the Voice of College Football and subscribe. Let's get the phone lines fired up here at the Voice of College Football. (860) 499-3332. 860-499-3332. And we'll see what you folks have going on. We've got a call coming in. Let's, I recognize this number. Let's take it. Hello, hello.
It's the great Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
Doing well, David. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent. I did want to chime in on the NIL and the transfer portal on just a couple of points. First of all, I do see, and I understand why college football wants to move in the direction of being, more pro player. I get it. I think that the argument's long since been made that, that these players generate a lot of money for these universities and bring in a lot as far as that goes, and that they should be, compensated for it or should get some type of benefit for what they do for these universities. I think that's always been the argument. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
Well, I think that's one major argument. I think the other major argument, at least the one that I think is, to me, personally, even overrides that one, is that they are American citizens. Mm-hmm. So why can they not profit in any such way in building a business or doing anything else that everyone else is allowed to do?
And I understand where they're coming from on that. And the only points that I would make, Mark, and we've talked about this before, but I just can't harp on it enough. I've always said that my concern with the NIL is it's just leading us down the road of wanting to pay the players. And that the line between the NFL and college football that used to be somewhat blurred is no longer blurred. Because basically you've led us to a transfer portal that has led to a certain extent like free agency football for college. And you've given us an NIL, which is a form of compensation, for the players. And the thing that going down that road is, maybe some people just want that. I think the people that want NIL should just come out and say, maybe we should just pay the players. Do you think they are just unwilling to say that and want to just say, hey, well, let's just do this NIL as a way of getting around that?
I do think that there's still a stigma to make that statement, let's pay the players, and for the establishment to say that. People say that all the time. Fans say it. Media says it. Why don't we just pay the players? But for the establishment, the people that are supposed to be representing the purity of the sport and the academic side of the sport, whether those are administrators or coaches, for them to say, let's just pay the players. I know it's been stated once or twice, maybe out there by somebody that's a coach.
Yeah.
I think there's still a stigma, or it's a little bit taboo. I would argue, and I don't know if I'm right in this argument, it's just a different way to look at it, much like when this all unfolded almost a year ago. I made a lot of statements when asked, okay, what's going to happen? I made a lot of statements to say, I don't know if this is going to happen, but this is what could happen, or this could happen, or that could happen. And I'll say the same thing here. that I understand your point that this leads possibly to the players being paid, but I would argue that it could possibly lead to um, us not getting to that point, meaning as long as the players are compensated in some way and they are satisfied with that compensation, if that compensation is coming from a private entity, then I think if that continued to be restricted, let's say NIL was not allowed, then there would be more pressure on the schools to pay the players. I think this is leading us in a direction in which we can fend off them not being formally paid in some kind of salary structure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was basically, some people just don't want to say the quiet part out loud, Mark, as the line goes. And, to the people that wanted to do that, it goes back to the point where a lot of things sound good in theory, but until you put pen to paper and design a plan and put it out there, what may sound good in theory doesn't always sound good in execution. You know where I'm going with on that, Mark?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't, and I think,
well, I was just going to say, I don't think there's anything going on right now that wasn't within the grasp of anyone's thoughts or imagination could be going on. I don't think we got into this and then all of a sudden there are all hell's breaking loose and nobody foresaw that. So
right.
And really outside of each individual state's approach and guidelines and rules and laws concerning this, there is nothing pen to paper right now.
Well, the one thing I was going to say, and back to kind of the original statement that I'd made about the players, bringing in all this money, bringing in all the revenue to these schools, and getting some type of compensation for it. I think you've mentioned in the past, Mark, that for what they get, to go to a university and all the benefits of that, I don't think it's just small potatoes here, Mark. I mean, that would be worth a lot to a lot of people to be able to go and get a full ride scholarship and go to a major university, and that has some value to it and a lot of value to it, one would think.
Yes, that has often irritated me, like few other things, when people have claimed in the past, oh, these players need to be paid. They're making all this money for these schools. Well, we can always argue how much the workers should be compensated for contributing to the success of the company. That can always be debated. I doubt if many people would consider that NFL players are underpaid, but if you looked at how much money they bring in, and if you sized it down, if you took those same percentages and you sized down the company of the NFL, there would be people out there, I'm sure, that would argue, oh, they're not getting enough. They're not getting enough, but because they're getting millions of dollars, people look at that total. They don't look at proportions. And again, I bet if the NFL was sized down and if it was a tenth of the size that it is, and if players were, the minimum wage was 60,000 and not 600,000, there might be people out there going, oh, they're not making enough money. Yes, absolutely. And because I've lived it, just like a number of people, I don't know about yourself, David, but a number of people out there have lived having children go to college and understand that if you pay for college, the combination of yourself and your children, and for me, that's what it is. It's an agreement we've had between ourselves. So they share much of the burden and myself. And so you understand that it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a huge value.
Yeah. Right. And then, also, Mark, you could say that the education component, because, I mean, let's be fair. Jerry Glanville had a line years ago. He says, you know what the NFL stands for, right, Mark?
Sure. Not for long.
Yeah, not for long, right. So, I mean, you've looked it up. You know how long an average NFL career lasts. It's just that. It's not for long. So, and one of the better ESPN specials, I think got into this. Remember the broke 30 for 30 that where they talked about a lot
Sure.
of athletes, after their playing career, So I think that taking advantage of that while you're there might be somewhat helpful to you, down the road in life, and you're probably going to have to. I mean, the numbers say that. Now, whether that's coming across or being communicated properly to the student athlete, I don't know, but one would think it should be. Um, so, I mean, that's my thought on it. The other thing too, and I think that this has been thrown around a lot that, they say, and I haven't seen the numbers, and I think we joked about it before, Mark, that they can't afford to go out and get a piece of pizza or something like that, or go get something to eat. And I'd have to see the numbers on it. How many of these student athletes are truly can't afford to go out and get food and are that impoverished to where they can't, you know, that they need something like the NIL to provide for them the basics of life, which is food and clothing. And that, because one would think that would be provided, at the school that they went to as part of their scholarship and all of that, Mark. Because I haven't seen any numbers on ones that they can't afford that or literally living at that type of impoverished type level. Could I be wrong on that, Mark? Or have you seen anything?
I don't know. So I don't want to I don't want to state ignorantly what I think or what it probably is like.
Sure.
I will say that based on the way these student athletes, and I'm sure it is much different today than it was in 1980 in terms of the type of food that they eat because of the nutritional
Sure.
value that's given to it and the science that's given to it and the care for the student athletes today versus back when it was just okay, here's your cheeseburgers and fries. That they
Right.
eat better when they are, and I don't know if it's a situation where, okay, carte blanche, the cafeteria is open, they can always run down as a student athlete and get whatever they want Monday through Friday, and let's say after 7 o'clock or whatever they can't, and this is where they run into issues on the weekends or off season or whatever. I doubt if it's off season because I'm guessing that they can go down and they can eat on campus based on their scholarship at any time they want. That's my guess. And again, I shouldn't speak in ignorance, but and I'm guessing that food is as good or better than what 90% of us that are watching and viewing and talking about this right now eat on a day-to-day
Sure.
basis.
Well, but you know what I mean? I was using it as the general line that they also use to say, to justify trying to compensate the players by saying, oh, well, they can't even afford food, or I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is there really a study saying that we have a high percentage of student athletes who are going to college who just can't afford food? I mean, because people throw that statement out and don't throw anything out numbers wise to back that up. That's what
Absolutely.
I'm saying.
Man,
And
you were David,
I
you
think they're just,
go ahead, David. Go
yeah.
ahead.
But well, I just think they're using a lazy thing that they're backing
Yep.
up with no data to justify something, and to reinforce their priors. So that's why that's kind of my frustration there with that.
David, you are
I think
hitting on something. Just to conclude your point, you can move on to your next topic. Just you are hitting on something right there that gets to me as well. When people are when either some type of situation is thrown out, and I'm going to the larger whole of public life, social issues, political issues, and so forth. When somebody throws out some type of videotape, something, or there's some kind of situation that moves people are moved emotionally. People are moved by seeing something on a 12-second video or seeing or hearing about something. And generally the argument is based on, and people's perspective is based on one incident or some kind of rhetoric
right.
that gets spread. And when there is not data given to it, we
Right.
get completely into some kind of territory of not being realistic about it or understanding how widespread the issue might be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying that charts and graphs and numbers and data is the be all end all, but it does give a little bit more, not a lot more validity to somebody's case or argument. I mean, that's why people use it to begin with. Let's just be real.
Yeah, I don't want any student athlete to be going a full day or two without eating in any such way. But I would like to know if it's 1, if it's 13, if it's 1,000, if it's that's meaningful.
Right. I did want to get to transfer portal real quick before I let you go, Mark. Now I think that always there was, again, the well intentions behind the transfer portal, because, and I think that's what's allowed, certain recruiting classes and the student athletes to say, okay, well, I can go to this university, and they know in the back of their mind that the transfer portal is still out there as something that they can utilize to where, if it doesn't work out at said school, I have the opportunity, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing. I actually think transfer portal, does have its benefits. Now, it frustrates a lot of coaches, but I will say, now, again, I didn't quite get a chance to hear your argument on it. What did you say about the 30 days on that, Mark?
I would put in 2 30-day windows, one directly after spring practice, one directly after that particular player's season in which they can transfer. And that's it.
Okay. I mean, I could go for that. I mean, I actually think that would be good. I think that seemed like that would probably help out the coaches too, wouldn't you say, Mark?
Yeah. So in the NFL, there's not carte blanche, open free agency 365 days a year. There is a period of NFL free agency after the season. So make it similar to that. And I would make 2 windows because of the weight of spring practice and that player's opportunity to compete, and then also assess their situation, talk to their position coach, talk to their head coach, and understand where they stand, and then make a decision 30 days after spring practice, 30 days after the season.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that. I think that the spring practice point is a good point, because, usually at that point, I think that the student athlete knows, hey, I'm going to be a starter here and I'm going to get playing time, or it's just not going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually think that I think that these things could come down the road. I hope the changes in the NIL or transfer portal come, but we're at where we're at, and we really don't have a good governing body to kind of assist with these things, do we, Mark?
No, we don't. We don't. And I know it's complicated, and I make it out to be fairly simple when I set out those stipulations, but maybe I'm not thinking it fully through, but we've been in on this for like 9 months. So I think I've got some grasp on it. And those seem to be pretty logical, straightforward, understandable, fair to both sides ways to address it. And then, and again, it's not going to solve every problem, and those aren't, it's not like there couldn't be situations that play outside of those boundaries that are reasonable, that could be looked at or something like that. But just knowing red tape and bureaucracy in the NCAA, who knows how long it's going to be before they make any kind of judgment or decision.
And remember, logical and NCAA, Mark. I don't know about you.
I violated the NCAA rule there.
Might be a little bit of a pipe dream there, Mark.
No doubt.
All right, Mark. Well, always a pleasure to talk college football with you, man. You take care of yourself.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Our guy, David, on the line, and gets us kicked off. And next on the Voice of College Football, who's up?
Hey, Mark. I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to disagree with you, too. This is Joey.
Joey, what's going on?
Hey, man. So I like what you were saying about the transfer portal twice a year, but I don't agree with your timing.
Okay.
I think the transfer portal should be twice a year, but during the signing periods, because that would help the coaches as well. So then they know, okay, this player left, so we need to bring a player in. If they have an offensive lineman leave, they can bring an offensive lineman in out of the transfer portal pretty much simultaneously. If you do it after spring ball and after the end of the season, maybe after the end of the season, they can replace him during signing. But after spring ball, they would have a hard time. So I think twice a year and during the signing period, and that's it.
Okay, so be a little bit more specific. When you say during the signing period, when is that are you talking about during December and February?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to have two periods of time during December and during February. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I still like the idea of the player having the opportunity after spring practice to transfer.
Well, then how does he get replaced? If let's say all of a sudden 3 offensive linemen decide they want to transfer, and they might not be starters, but they might be the depth. That would hurt teams, Maybe it wouldn't hurt Alabama or an Ohio State, but a team such as mine, West Virginia, it would hurt really bad if 3 offensive linemen decide to transfer after the spring game with no opportunity to really replace them. That's why I say put it on during the signing period so they can be replaced, and you don't lose that depth.
Well, the teams seem to be adjusting now, and there are no stipulations, no guidelines.
Well, I don't think they're adjusting so much as they're just making it through right now. It's only year 2 of this. Well, and so I think it's going to be. I think come next year it's going to start hurting some teams. For one, my team, West Virginia, we've lost a lot. We've lost 19 transfers. So we lost one yesterday, and this gets to the NIL deal. I think there's a couple of things with NIL. I think it should be like in the NFL, they have a rookie contract. They can't make so much. They could do that. So like your first year student, you get 1x the amount. Second years can get 2x amount, and third year 3x amount. You go up to a 5th year senior who gets unlimited. He can get any NIL that he wants, and they just cap that. But another problem too is I think they need to do away with the. If they're going to have this NIL, they need to stop the pay-for-play rule. Right now, if a player goes to, just yesterday at West Virginia, we had a player, Josh Chandler-Samito, an offensive lineman, who entered the transfer portal. Last month, he got a new car out of the NIL deal. Well, he gets to keep the car. It can't be tied to the university. It can't be tied to pay-for-play. So, therefore, he keeps the car and he bolts and goes to another college. Now, I think if they get rid of the pay for play, then they can take these NIL deals and actually tie them to say, okay, you have to play such and such place to get this, and that would make players more or less stay with the program they choose instead of hopping around. I think that would help. You have a thought on that?
We talked about that with a few callers or a few people in the last couple of weeks, and I like that as well. So I forgot about that, but I did like that. We talked to somebody about that. And so let's say in particular, in this case, player X gets a car, it's tied to an NIL deal, that there should be an understanding that he signs an NIL deal that commits him to that team for the next season.
Right. That's what
I agree with that.
But you can't do that right now. You can't do that right now because that's pay for play. So they need to get rid of the pay for play rule so that people that do want to go into an NIL deal can actually tie them to that university. So like this was a local car dealership that give this Josh Chandler-Samito a new car, a local car dealership in Morgantown.
Yeah, that has to be addressed.
He's got the car and it's gone. Yeah, he's got the car and he's gone. He's entered the transfer portal. So that dealership's just out of car with no advertisement for it.
Yeah, the car dealership is supporting West Virginia football. They want to support West Virginia football.
Right.
Absolutely. There's got to be something done about that. That's not right. That has to be in the stipulation. That has to be in the contract of the NIL.
Yeah. And that was my 2 points I wanted to hit on. So I agreed with you on the twice per year for transfer portal. I just think it should be a different timing on it. And then, like I say, get rid of the pay for play rule, and that will solve a lot of problems with NIL, I believe. So, all right, man. Well, I'll let you go and get another call in. You have a great day. I'll get back over here in the chat.
Appreciate it, Joey. Have a good day.
Good day.
It's our man, Joey, West Virginia fan. Really supports us here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate everything Joey does. He is active in the chat. Catch him over on Gold and Blue Dudes channel as well. Coos's Corner covering West Virginia football. So they're all good guys. And we do our West Virginia show every Friday night. Hopefully you caught our last West Virginia show. We had former players, Brian Joswiak, All-American, first-round NFL draft pick in 1986, and Eugene Napoleon, running back there at West Virginia, who played in the Fiesta Bowl national championship game against Notre Dame. And we had a tremendous time on Friday night. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nil Rule, MVP. How you doing?
There he is. What's going on?
Yeah. So my main issue with the NIL is maybe it's just from a fan perspective, or I haven't seen enough. I haven't been enough big places, but I haven't seen any transactions being made, if that makes sense. Like, I haven't seen any ads or any sponsorships for the NIL bill.
I'm a little perplexed about that as well. So I'm on social media all the time. I don't care to be, but because of what I do, it, of course, is a necessity. And
right.
I would think that as college football fans, and because I'm in contact with so many college football fans and college football media more so, that they would be sharing, Bryce Young's Instagram posts or CJ Stroud's this or that, and you would see what they're promoting and what they're involved in and what they're advertising. I sometimes hear it. I hear about these things from time to time. The first one was right out of the gate, Bo Nix and some kind of lemonade company in Alabama. But I would just think it would be all over the place. Just either people making fun of it or people promoting it or whatever. You would think that people would share this stuff all over the place, but I don't see it.
Well, what I did last night is I did some basic research, and I mean like 5 minutes worth of research. And I found a website, not NCAA, but just a random website that lists all the NIL deals, okay, by university, by company, and they tell you, okay, which company has ties to which players and what they get out of it, okay? So what company, Mark, do you think has the most NIL deals right now?
Have I ever heard of this company?
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone in this chat has.
Oh, wow. Are we talking about some kind of retail or food or?
This is a sports company. Very famous CEO, very active on social media.
Nike.
No, it is Barstool Sports.
Okay. All right.
They have, from this website, they have done 7,447 NIL deals.
Oh. I need to hire you as a researcher. This is the kind of stuff I could care less to look up myself, but it's interesting and should be uncovered.
Second was some clothing company that I've never heard in my life with 29.
What's their name?
Steakhouse, also with 29.
I'm sorry, the real MVP. Who was that?
Huh?
What's their name?
I don't know. It's just some I don't know. I forgot the name. It was just some clothing company. It's like, right. I've never heard of this company. It's just a clothes. So I clicked on their website. It's clothing. They do polos, suits, ties, boots, all the stuff. And then I was shocked that Outback Steakhouse was third.
Okay.
Beats me.
Well, they've been invested in college football for quite some time.
Okay. I mean, they do have a bowl game as well, so I guess
that's what I'm
now
referring
I'm doing
to.
a little more thinking about it. Right. Okay. That makes more sense. But And then I read a few articles about Barstool Sports because I haven't seen any ads with athletes involving Barstool Sports, okay? So it's like, this is suspicious. So apparently from the athletes that these articles interviewed, all they had to do was go to Barstool Sports website and you fill out a Google form. You submit it to Barstool Sports and they give you free merchandise for putting Barstool Sports athlete on their Twitter bio.
Mm.
And that's the whole NIL bill.
Okay.
So what's your thoughts about it, Mark?
Well, I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I don't have an issue with that. There is work. I put that in quotes, knowing that these guys aren't necessarily digging ditches, that there is work done. They are trading their popularity, their celebrity as a college football player, and they are advertising for Barstool Sports. So that's it's a trade of you represent us and we benefit from your influence on social media as a player.
So that's probably why you haven't seen many ads, because Barstool Sports has completely cornered the NIL market. I mean, they are so far and way ahead of anybody else. It's ridiculous. So that might explain that. I've seen some other ones. Somebody got their own cryptocurrency.
I would have to admit, even though I'm on social media several times a day, let's say on Twitter in particular, I do not follow any college football players. So I do not care to follow any college football players. And that's not a knock against them. I just don't want to see a bunch of silliness on my Twitter feed all day. So I don't follow any college football players.
That's a shot against young people in general. And
no, it's really not. No. It's really not against young people. There are certainly a lot more sensible young people than even older people. I kind of have this rule when it comes to social media that I don't follow anyone who doesn't follow me. Like, I'm not going to be one of these people that chases a bunch of celebrities. I could care less.
Oh, that's smart. That's fair. And the thing about the transfer portal, I think the thing that's going to reduce the number of transfers per year is it's just going to be time, because we're going to start hearing stories about how this player played his entire life. He was a walk-on who earned a scholarship. He didn't like his playing time. He went to another, transferred and never got another opportunity again.
Yeah. I agree. It's going to settle down, just like early entries into the NFL draft. Once the NFL draft, once the NFL started to compile draft reports, draft grades on these players to give them some direction and some information on if they would be drafted and most likely when. And also, these stories would come out and there would be experiences told about how many early entries into the NFL draft never got drafted, and they showed up at an NFL training camp and they were sitting on the practice squad for 2 seasons and then they never saw the field, and that was that, because they never developed and they weren't ready for the NFL. Yeah, I can see that.
I think that will be happening. And the last thing I would suggest is the NIL, the people who create them, should tie in there. If you're available to play, you must play in all your games. That way we can get rid of these opt-out and bowl games.
Oh, absolutely. The only problem I see there is, I don't know. As long as the NIL entity is satisfied with whatever the player is giving them, I don't know how we can regulate that.
If all the companies did it and say, hey, you have to play in all your games because that's part of your job as your service, just to promote us. And these bowl games, if you make one that counts as a game, it's on record, it counts forever, then you have to play in it.
I agree.
I don't see any. Yeah.
I would love to see it.
I don't see any way they can argue against it.
But that's not something I don't know that the NCAA could impose upon the NIL entities to say, you have to make this part of your agreement. I don't know if, some of these things are legal matters.
That would be something I don't think it's something they can impose on the NIL corporations, but I do think if you have players sitting out of games, then they're going to be upset and be like, why are these players sitting out of the most watched game of the year when they could be promoting our product the most? So I think that's why the market just might determine it without any regulation. Because you've talked about it, the Cure Bowl, the Gasparilla Bowl, the Music City Bowl, all these random bowl games, they get more viewers than most regular season games. So that'd be the ideal time to market your product. And if your NIL athlete isn't playing, you're not going to get your product market.
I get your point.
So I think
it's a good point, but I would make the counterpoint, and I don't know, I think we're both a little bit right and a little bit wrong, I would think, is that take your Barstool Sports example of what they are trading. They are wanting to get their logo and their brand on that player's social media in exchange for, we're going to give you X, Y, and Z, jump on the, whatever the trade is there that you outlined. Well, these players that opt out, they're opting out because they're going to the NFL draft. They're not opting out at the end of their freshman season and then coming back the next year and continuing to play for that team. They're opting out at the end of their careers and moving on to the NFL draft. So if Barstool Sports or whomever still has them signed and still has some kind of an agreement, they may still be just as valuable now as an NFL prospect who's entering the NFL draft as they are a player that's going to play in the Alamo Bowl next week.
Yeah, I could see that, but that's why I think these NIL deals should be happening at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year. Because if it says in the contract you have to play in the bowl game, well, then you got to play in the bowl game. And if the player doesn't want the NIL deal, he doesn't have to sign it.
You're still leaving that up to the particular NIL entity to determine whether they want to do that, though. And if they're not doing it now, I'm sure they've thought of that.
Well, common sense isn't as common as you think, Mark. That's all I've learned that. So I don't know. Maybe not. But that's all I've got for you today, Mark. Hit the like and subscribe button on this video. Mark, you're only 31 subs away on your Notre Dame channel from hitting 1,000.
Let's get there.
So I believe, how many viewers you got?
Oh, what do we got? We got 62 right now.
So if only half of those went and subscribed to your Notre Dame channel, you would have 1,000.
That would be phenomenal. All right, the real MVP. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Have a good day. And before we take this next call, and I've got a lot of ground to make up in this chat, and you guys know how I approach the chat. I sift through every comment. Maybe I shouldn't. It is currently 4:04, and I'm back at 3:05. But I have to stop when they amuse me in particular. So, Christopher, Mark gets really defensive because he and I almost never agree about anything in particular. So, I don't know what I get defensive about, and I really don't know a whole lot that we disagree on. Basically, Chris, as I interpret our phone calls, is you call in, you start running down, I'll be kind, running down various proficiency ratings, and I just kind of let you go on and on. I really don't understand the point of it. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just sitting there kind of throwing my hands up like, what's your point? Chris, the next time you call, if you want to address either your proficiency ratings or your 1984 argument that seems to be endless, you've written me like 1,000 comments, and I don't even know if I'm exaggerating, and I appreciate that. I truly do. And I'm sincere when I say that. I appreciate your comments to the channel. I would like you to summarize, what is your purpose? What is your point? What point are you trying to make? I'm not offended by anything. I'm not being defensive. I truly, most of the time, don't understand. Now, there have been times when you've said something and I've said, no, I disagree with that. That's wrong. When you're trying to tell me, for example, that Iowa, with 4 losses, factors in as a national championship contender in 1984, that's when I have to stop you and say, you're out of your mind. But in terms of being defensive, understand that most of the time, I don't know what your purpose, I don't know what point you're trying to make. So I'm simply just amused, and then probably amused for a time that then slides into annoyance, and then that's the end of the conversation. So, all right. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Speak of the devil.
I saw 719, and
Yeah.
I thought maybe I was leading right into that.
Huh. No, I mean, perfect timing, I guess, as far as that goes. But which question do you want me to answer first? I mean, I
Okay.
don't want to waste your time or mine, but
No,
Is
not
it-
at all. Okay,
What?
this is the question I have for you. Okay,
okay.
let's focus on 1984. All right, the famous 1984 argument. I am going to make a statement.
I don't really.
I'm
Sure.
going to make a statement
Go
to
ahead.
let you know why I posted the video about a disputed national championship in 1984, to make it clear to you and whomever else cares, probably no one, but anyway, to you, about why
Okay,
I
yeah.
produced that video. And then I just
No,
simply
you've already told me all that.
then
You've already told me all that, but you can go ahead and do it. Go ahead.
okay, I will take
do
that
you wanna
opportunity
hear-
and do that.
I,
And then I simply
I'm
want
from
you to
Colorado.
tell me, what is your mission, purpose that you are trying to communicate? Okay, so I'll simply state,
well,
I looked at the 1984 season. BYU, quote unquote, won a national championship. They were given a national championship by the voters based on
fine.
an undefeated season. They were the only team in college football with an
Sure.
undefeated season. So they got the votes in the coaches poll and in the AP poll to earn a national championship. I simply am stating that they played probably the weakest schedule in the history of college football for a number 1 team. And therefore, I am looking at other teams and their qualifications for a national championship, and not taking away a national championship from BYU, but considering Washington and Florida as earning a share of a national championship. That's it.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily disagree with that. I mean, that's what's kind of strange. I mean, you make it sound like I have a problem with that. I don't. If you want to pick, I don't know who is it you want to pick. I don't really. That's the part I don't really understand. Is it Florida? That's fine. Pick Florida. I'm not going to say you're wrong to have Florida as your national champion. I don't know that it's wrong necessarily to pick Washington. I think it's wrong to exclude Brigham Young, though, if that's what you're asking. I don't think it's fair to say, well, it's either Florida or Washington and not Brigham Young. I think that's a little, I don't want to say other than prejudice, but you're certainly free to have that opinion. I don't know how, like, you get on me for maybe not having the right method or whatever, the right solution, I guess, that tells you it's what I've done. I mean, I kind of want to be clear with you. I mean, I wasn't born in I went through quite a bit of research, Mark, and this is what I found, whether it's the right answer or not. I'm not like the smartest person by far that you'll ever meet, but I tried to use what I thought were fair credentials or whatever. What I discovered, kind of to my dismay or whatever, was that there really isn't much difference between Washington and Brigham Young as far as the title goes. But I don't know if you don't want to accept that as a fair reflection of what happened, or in other words, my research as far as, and I think I've done a fair amount of it. I don't know how much I have to do before it finally becomes valid research, but where Iowa comes into play is the Tide Iowa. I mean, that's what Iowa has to do with it. And I think Iowa is a pretty established program, and at 8-4-1, they're legitimate to 1/3 of the title themselves. They just are. I mean, it's really not worth arguing about.
Who
So
tied
they enter into it as a
Iowa
one-
in 1984?
Wisconsin.
What's Wisconsin
And
have
that's
to
part
do
of the
with it?
reason why it's a,
What does Wisconsin
I already
have to do
explained
with the
that to you.
1984 national championship?
compared to each other.
What was
Brigham Young
Wisconsin?
tied Pittsburgh
Okay, Brigham Young tied
4-7-1. 4-7.
Wait a minute. Whoa,
Or
whoa, whoa,
7-4
whoa, whoa,
one,
no,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no, 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 no. BYU didn't tie anyone. They went undefeated with no ties. What are we talking about?
No, that's not true. You do your own revisionist history. I'm doing my own revisionist history.
No,
They tied
no,
Pittsburgh.
I
That's
deal
what
with
really
the
happened.
actual results. You spill into other seasons.
No. Well, that's not what I did that in this instance. They tied Pittsburgh. What it was Pittsburgh had a fourth down that they scored on that wasn't counted for some stupid reason right before halftime. You can look into it and the truth of it. How I found out about it was in Brigham Young, they had a show that was dedicated to their championship where they brought that up themselves. I think that kind of speaks to their credibility, if you want to know my opinion. Blaine Fowler, who was the backup quarterback, says, well, you know what? We got by with one there. I says, it looks like Pittsburgh scored a touchdown that wasn't counted. And that would, so let's count it. Why not? That's not what he said. That's what I'm saying. So that makes it 20-20. They tied Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was 3-6-2.
What was the final?
It's just a fact,
What was the
Mark. I
final
mean,
score of that game? I know what the final score of that game was, but I'm asking you, what was the final score of that game? What was the final score on the scoreboard? What was the final score on the scoreboard?
20-14.
Okay.
But I'm counting the
Do they
touchdown,
not
so
kick extra points?
Well, they never attempted one. Now, that's kind of a stupid argument because it's like
It's not a
you're gonna
stupid
give them the credit
argument.
for a
If
point
you're
they never
going to
attempted.
give the other team a
So now
touchdown,
you're going to give the win. You're going to give Pittsburgh the win, then, huh? Now,
you
go ahead and
are.
give them the
It
win,
sounds
I
like
guess.
you
Go ahead.
are.
Go-
You're giving
No.
them a touchdown. They would have kicked an extra point.
I
They
did.
would have made it 99.3% of the time. So you're
Well, they
telling me
didn't-
that
they didn't attempt one,
BYU
so it-
lost a game.
No, I'm not. They show me the attempted extra point that they made or didn't make. I didn't ever see that one.
Show me
saw
the
the touchdown
touchdown
they
that was
scored.
counted.
You'll see it. You'll see it. No,
Then they
scored a
if
touchdown. And
they scored, and I don't have an issue with you awarding a touchdown if you truly believe, and it could be substantiated on videotape that
when
they were
scored it.
if they
If
were
they
ro-
did,
if
scored a
they were
touchdown.
robbed of a touchdown, I have no issue with you making that claim. But they then would have kicked an extra point, and BYU would have
Well,
lost the game. And so wipe
you're
them
assuming-
off
no,
the
that's
map.
not true, Mark.
What?
No.
They would have. Does not a
I'm
team
giving them
attempt an extra
credit.
point when they score a touchdown?
Show me an extra point that's guaranteed.
I didn't
don't
say
know.
it was
Maybe you can do
guaranteed.
that. I don't
Did
know.
I say
Good
it was
luck.
guaranteed? I said it's made over 99% of the time. I didn't say it was
There was a game BYU
guaranteed.
beat Washington.
If you are gifting a touchdown, or you believe that Pittsburgh was robbed of a
I don't know
touchdown,
that I'm gifting anything. I'm not gifting them anything. They scored a touchdown. There's kind of a difference between the two.
okay, they in your eyes they scored a touchdown, but obviously it was
No,
not.
they did. They did score a touchdown. They scored one.
Obviously,
It's undisputable.
but it was not. It was not credited
counted.
to them. Correct. The
Like you said, they
officials.
could tell they were robbed of something.
The officials
Yeah,
did not credit them
that's
with a
true.
touchdown, correct? I'm not saying that what was right or wrong. I don't know. I'm just
It was immediately before halftime. You can look into it yourself. It's not
okay.
that hard to
I
do.
will possibly
Yeah, they
look
scored.
into it. I'm not going to guarantee that, but I'm just wanting you to answer the question. There was a 6-point game between Pitt and BYU. And you are telling
Sure.
me that Pittsburgh should have been credited with a touchdown, that they were not. Had they scored that touchdown, they would have attempted an extra point that would have won the game. We also
Potentially
don't
might have.
know. You're talking
a
about. You're also talking about a situation that
Brigham
happened.
Young, no, Brigham Young. they
You're
lost
also
it, returned it
talking
for
about a
2-point.
situation
you know.
that ended at the end of the first half, and we don't know how the rest of the game would have played out. Unlike other situation
Well,
controversial.
We kind of do know how the rest of the game played out. sort of.
Unlike,
I mean, that's
no,
not
we
really
don't
accurate.
know how. It is accurate.
We
We
don't?
don't know how the rest of the game would have played out.
Yeah, you just put on your television and watch what
We
happened.
don't know how the rest of the game would have played out.
Yeah, I think we do know. We watched it ends in a tie. Is how the rest of the game plays
It didn't
out.
end
But
in a
regardless,
tie, based on what you're saying, that Pitt would have lined up for the game-winning extra point. So, in your
I don't know on
world,
that.
in your world,
Here's what happened.
there's a over 99% certainty that Pitt would have won that game, and BYU shouldn't even be considered for a national championship based on their horrendous schedule. They lost to a 3-7 team. In your world, they lost to a 3-7 Pitt team.
Tied them.
No, they would have been playing. There is no reality. The reality is that they lost the game. The reality is BYU is credited with a 20-14 win.
Well, that's what Blaine Fowler said. I know. That's not what happened.
That is what happened.
You need to, before you
go to the record book. It's 20-14. BYU won the game. That's the reality. Now, should that be the reality?
No,
I don't know. It's just like Colorado and Missouri. There was a fifth down. The reality is that Colorado officially won the game. Should they have won the game? I will argue that they should not have, but they did. And so that's the reality.
Did you know that turf they played on was almost like having an extra player on Missouri's side? It's like having 12 people on the field the whole game.
The turf that they played on.
You know who the player of the game was for the Missouri? That game was the turf. I think he had like 12 unassisted tackles or something like that. 12 or 13. I can't remember.
We are getting off into like the twilight zone. If you are crediting a team with a win because the turf was tougher for one team than the other team.
Well, you can watch it again. Any person can watch the game again, and they can make up their own mind about what they think about it.
Okay.
I know there was at least a touchdown.
You've made all the measurements of what tackles would have been made or would not have been made based on the turf being faulty.
There were like 12 unassisted tackles. There were 12 unassisted tackles by the turf. I don't know how. That's a pretty good game for one player.
Just against one team, not against the other team. The one team had problems with the turf, and the other team didn't have problems with the turf.
There may have been like 5 or 6 for the other team,
this
too.
insanity to a completely different level. Okay, let's focus on 1984. 1984.
Okay, what's your objection again? I'm still confused about what the objection is to BYU being a national champion. I don't get it.
I never had an objection to that.
Let me know.
No. How many times have you watched that video? Have you watched it once? If you watched it once and listened to it, I never in any way said BYU should be, that their national championship should be taken away from them. I said that there are other teams that they did not play, i.e. Florida and Washington, who should be given consideration for a national championship. We've had other split national championships. That should have been another one.
Well, I'm not saying it was a split championship.
Well,
I'm saying this is what I'm saying.
I'm saying it should be a split national championship.
Between who?
Between Washington, Florida, and BYU. And apparently Pitt, because they beat BYU, even though they were 3-7.
No, they did beat them, but whatever. I never said they beat them, but whatever. If you want to twist my words around,
because they weren't going to attempt the extra point. They were just going to say, you know what, we don't want to attempt the extra point.
I don't. Generally, I try not to give a team a credit for something they didn't do. So I mean, show me the extra point that they made, and then I'll go with you and say, yeah, you're right.
What is the percentage of makes on an extra point?
The touchdown that Colorado had against Missouri, they made the teams come back on the field afterwards because they were just going to walk off the field. They said, no, you have to. And so they had to attempt an extra point to finish the game because Colorado was ahead by 2 points. I don't know. I'm just telling you what happened. They all walked off the field and they made them both come back on the field for the extra point attempt. Colorado didn't want to even attempt it, and they made them force them to do it.
Okay, Chris.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
I'm going to give you one more chance. We're not talking about 1990. We're going to focus. We're going to focus our conversation on 1984. What do you believe is just? What purpose do you have? What purpose do you have in writing like 1,000 comments concerning this particular season? What do you want the outcome to be? That's all I want to know.
I already told you what the outcome. There's 3 teams that are equally. I think if it's what you're saying, it's pretty much the same thing I'm saying, except There's a difference between me and you. I'm saying the team that probably deserves it is Brigham Young. You're saying the team that probably deserves it is the team that isn't Brigham Young. So even when we agree, we don't agree. Is the weirdest part. I don't quite understand why.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you that there were other teams that weighed into the outcome.
I never in
Florida
any
was
way
ineligible.
I never in any way said that Brigham Young did not deserve a portion of a national championship, but the three
Well-
teams that were in consideration for the national championship did not play, and they all have strengths and weaknesses to their resume. I'm saying that they
No.
all three have consideration for a national championship, and I would award a national championship to all three of them. I would want to.
No,
I would
I'd
want
give
to.
maybe
I would want a playoff to have
No.
been played, and then we could have decided a national championship.
But see, that's where we disagree again because I don't like playoffs. I don't think that helps at all. Personally.
Well,
I don't think a playoff.
playoffs.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't
okay.
like playoffs.
This is at the very core of any athletic competition, is to put the teams in question on the same playing surface so they can play and determine who's better. That's what a playoff
Well,
is.
Okay.
Why would you
I
not
understand.
want a playoff?
I am against the idea of commercializing the sport that doesn't require one. Is pretty much the simple answer to that.
So the game was not
It's not
commercialized
professional.
before 2014.
Not professional football. I don't think
Before
you need to put a professional
2014,
aspect
there
to
was
it.
no commercialization. Nobody was making any money off college football before 2014, according to you. Nobody was selling
I
advertising.
wouldn't really know.
ESPN wasn't spending billions of dollars for the rights to college football games, Fox, CBS, etc. This did not happen until
I don't
2014.
know.
I'm just
I wouldn't
clarifying
know,
what you're
Mark. I'm
saying.
not involved with it.
You would, Chris, you would have to live under a rock and be a complete imbecile to not know that there was money exchanged in college football before 2014.
Okay.
Well, you're telling me that you don't like the
Um,
playoffs
the
because
other-
it commercializes college football. Well, that train had left the station decades before.
You know, and I'm sure you're well aware of this already. Washington could have played Brigham Young. They had that option. There was nobody telling Washington, sorry, you can't play Brigham Young. You have to play Oklahoma because there's a contract between Brigham Young and the Big Ten, and you aren't in the Big Ten, so you're going to have to play Oklahoma. Washington made a decision. They chose maybe a smart decision. I don't know. Maybe a commercially smart decision to play Oklahoma. And, you know, you can keep saying that Michigan was like I told you where I thought they finished 50th. It's fair. I mean, I'm a fair person. I don't know. You might not think I am, but I am. So they played the 50th. Actually, that's after they lost, but whatever. They played the 50th best team in the country, kind of like last year when they played UAB. That was the 50th team by the way I do it. So it's kind of like last year. Last year they
BYU
lost, and
was irrelevant last year. They weren't not playing for a national championship, so nobody cared who they played in a bowl game.
They came
Didn't
pretty
matter.
close. For not playing for one, they came pretty darn close.
So
Whatever, but
BYU came close to what? To playing for a
they
national
lost to
championship
Baylor.
last
Baylor
year?
won the
BYU came
Baylor
close
won a
to playing
belt.
for a national championship last year.
If they'd have beaten Baylor, Baylor won the belt, Mark. They won the belt championship. That's the championship Miami, Florida won in
First of all, you're
1983.
starting your
That's the one
statement
Colorado
with
won in
if.
1990.
That's always a red flag. You started your statement with if, and you are telling me, Chris, with a straight face. I think you must be the master of trolling here. BYU,
Maybe.
had BYU beaten Baylor, they would have played for a national championship last year.
They might have been, no. What it was is they might have been in Baylor's shoes, playing Mississippi, possibly beating Mississippi. That's all. That's all I'm saying. not saying they do.
BYU, had they beaten Baylor last year, would not have been playing in the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl is a game played between the Big 12 champion and the SEC champion, or the team that's not in the playoff from the SEC.
That's why I live in reality and not
you didn't right there
That's why I
because
live
you
in
had
reality.
no idea
Yeah.
who was scheduled and tiered to play in the Sugar Bowl. So no,
I think I do know. They played.
you didn't
they
know
played
because you
UAB.
just
I'm
told
not-
me that BYU would have been playing Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. That's not what would have
I said it's
happened.
possible.
It's not possible.
Well, it didn't happen. I know it.
The Big 12 plays the SEC in the Sugar Bowl. BYU's not in the Big 12 currently. They would not have been playing in the Sugar Bowl.
You're having to hedge quite a bit for somebody that thinks he knows so much more than I do.
I don't think
They're not in there
anything.
currently,
I'm
but
just
they're about to.
presenting facts. You say things that are
They probably
completely
aren't.
off the map and make
They're not in there
absolutely
currently, but they will be.
zero sense.
Not
Zero
really. How many
sense.
Pac-12? How many Pac-12
Zero
teams did they play in B last year? Was it 5?
What's that have to do with
Five.
them playing in the Sugar Bowl? You just made the statement. If BYU would have beaten Baylor, they would have played in the Sugar Bowl. No, they wouldn't have. The
Well-
Big 12 champion or the number 1 seed plays the SEC in the
Okay.
Sugar Bowl.
Rose Bowl.
So I don't know what
then.
you're talking
If they had
about.
beaten,
No, they wouldn't have. The Pac-12
you don't
champion
listen.
plays the Big 10 champion in the Rose Bowl. BYU's not playing in the Rose Bowl last year. We have gotten to a place that is completely
no.
out of reality. Like you're making things up. Like
I'm
me
not
saying
the only one who's said these things.
North
Other
Dakota
people
State.
have said, why isn't BYU?
That's like me saying Kansas, if they would have beaten TCU, would have been playing in the playoff. All right, Chris. We have callers waiting who actually want to talk reality. So thank you for
I know,
calling,
that's me.
and we'll talk sometime.
I don't know what fantasy.
See you. Okay.
Kid.
Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Wow.
Please talk
It's
about
George.
something that actually, yes, exists. I don't know if this is the best place to be going after Chris, but it might be. How you doing today, George?
Wow. He lost like 20 or 30 viewers on that call.
Yeah, he's probably not good for business.
I don't mind. I don't complain about callers, but somebody else mentioned it, and I do remember there was about 80 something, and then it went to 59. It was okay for the first 5 minutes. You know what I just did in your chat section? I just sold a hand-signed Mike Bellotti Nike Oregon Duck football for $100 to someone. Isn't that cool?
I'm not
Thanks,
following.
Mark.
I'm not going to go down to that
There's
place in the
guy in
chat
your
because I'm
chat.
going to miss a
There's
lot
Eric.
here.
There's Eric in Exploring with Ben, they're Oregon Duck fans. And my kid came up with an Oregon Duck hand-signed football by the coach, Mike Bellotti, from a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think he went on to coach San Diego Chargers after that. But
Uh,
somehow my son
You're
came
mixing up
on
mics.
this football, and it's just
Are you talking about Mike
Mike
Riley or Mike Bellotti? Mike Riley was the San Diego
Bellotti.
Chargers coach. Yeah, Bellotti with,
oh, okay,
with
good. I
Oregon.
got him confused. Right, Bellotti was even before that, right? Or was it after that?
Around the same time.
Okay, I'm not like you. I don't have a mind like a steel trap. I do about some things. Hey, anyway, that's nice. My kid got his football, and if you're an Oregon Duck, it's just, this thing is so beautiful. He sent them pictures of it, a couple guys in the chat.
Nice.
I'm happy. I'm happy that an Oregon Duck got it. Someone that cares, about it.
I will get to it at some point to see what you're talking about, I guess. This was shared in the chat.
Hey, you're not going to, you can't see the football. I can't put a picture in the chat. They gave me their number and then erased the comment right away. You know what I mean? So it was only, I took a screenshot, 1 second later they erased it. That's how we got together. It is sexy. Exploring with Ben said it is sexy, and it is. It's a sexy football. It's all white, and it's got like this platinum covered Nike swoosh on it. And then it says Mike Bellotti. It's pretty.
Okay.
MVP 24 just said, what's your thoughts on Oregon versus Georgia? I hope by some miracle Oregon wins just to get the football season started out on a right foot and upset right away.
That would be fun. And I've got no rooting interest otherwise, but it would just be fun. It would shake things up a little bit, give the Pac-12 a little mojo.
It's hard to comprehend what an upset that would be. I mean, Georgia's still got all them 5 stars and Oregon doesn't. Oh, I can't believe Oregon got Auburn's quarterback. That is so wild.
Yeah, so he gets to play Georgia
knows?
again.
And Dan Lanning, maybe he'll have some insight from being at Georgia that can help them a little bit. I don't know. I think there's hope for Oregon if Stetson Bennett starts. Can you imagine if Stetson Bennett runs out onto the field as Georgia's starting quarterback next year?
He should, right?
How is it possible all of Georgia's quarterbacks aren't transferring?
That
all
is a
five
bit
start sitting on the bench.
Yeah, that's a bit curious right there.
Yeah.
It
I have
certainly
nothing
is.
against Stetson Bennett. He looks short and he blinks too much. He looks like Bob Dylan's illegitimate son. I'm just like, he does not look like your prototypical quarterback. It's almost hilarious. And he's a walk-on. And then they got every other player is a 5-star quarterback. They can't get on the field. Oh, well, maybe that'll help them not get Arch Manning. Maybe they'll give the Gators a chance to get him. I like the way everyone talks about Arch Manning, that he's just guaranteed to be all pro someday, right? Like it's automatic. It's a given because his last name's Manning,
Well, it's worked out so far.
Yeah, so far. Porter Osborne Jr. just said Stetson Bennett equals national champion. Rob J said Bob Dylan laughing his ass off.
Bob
He does
Dylan
look like
and
Bob Dylan's
Stetson
kid.
Bennett?
You can't deny that. What about him?
Bob Dylan and Stetson Bennett. Well, for one thing, Stetson Bennett would have had to been born about 50 years ago. But so maybe
What
more
are you
like
talking about?
more like
Bob
his
Dylan
grandson. Bob Dylan's like 80 some years old.
He could still be siring children for all we know.
Yeah.
Men don't go through menopause.
I'm still thinking maybe his grandson. Let's go that route.
Oh, I don't know. He looks too much like him, but I guess it could be a family thing. John Shield said, George, can't wait to spank your Gators in a couple years. Go Canes. And I can't wait for that game either. I miss Miami being on our schedule. I wish we would put them back on there. I know it would make our schedule extremely difficult. It's a potential loss every year, but I still wish we would do it. And then we can play the rest of the games against Texas Southern or something and let them score 73 on us or whatever they did last year.
All right, George, I'm just weaving through the chat here. Just making my way.
You got anybody on hold?
I don't.
Well, what's going on in this world?
I don't. Look at that. We might be able to wrap this up. I'm just going to go through some comments here.
We expended a lot of energy on that NIL thing in the chat. I think it wore us out. All right. I want to hear from George. I ain't really got nothing to say, man. That chat was getting out of control about the NIL and free speech, and I don't even know where it was going, but I couldn't get involved. That was too intense.
Well, I will catch up to it here.
Jeff Webster thinks Arch Manning's going to end up in Austin, and that's possible.
Yeah, I really don't know who's in the lead for him. I know that Clemson's dropped off the board, but I don't know. All right, man. Well, I guess I do got a call coming in here.
All right.
All right, George.
See you guys later.
Thanks for the call. See ya.
Have a good day. Bye.
All right. Somebody wants to talk to me. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Willie. How's it going today?
I'm doing just fine, Willie.
Well, I got the blockbuster for you.
Okay.
I'm thinking Ohio State needs to drop out of the Big Ten and go independent. We either need to go independent or join the SEC, preferably independent. What do you think?
Okay. I want to know your reasoning first.
Well, my reasoning first is the Big Ten doesn't do anything. We're the biggest draw in the Big Ten.
Okay.
We could have our own network. I mean, we got plenty of stuff to put on the network. Hell, they can hire you and you can do a 2-hour show 3 days a week. I mean,
Sure.
the Big
I'd be all for it.
I mean, the Big Ten. What's the Big Ten do for Ohio State? It really doesn't do anything. We should be like Notre Dame. We can play Army, Navy. We schedule Notre Dame every year. We can still play Michigan if they want to play us, although I imagine they try and duck us now. But I'm sure we could come up with enough teams to play schedules and probably get about 8 home games. We can schedule 8 home games, and the rest would be we could play some top-ranked teams, 2 or 3 every year. We start with Notre Dame. We could get somebody out of the SEC, get somebody out of the ACC, Pac-10. I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, we could easily go independent. The Big Ten would be the one that would be losing if we drop out of the league.
Well, the first consideration, Willie, I got to think that the first consideration they're going to make is financial. Okay, so Ohio State's going to say, okay, let's drop out of the Big Ten. How much money are we making from Big Ten contracts with ESPN and Fox? We're making X number of dollars because of that. Are we going to be able to make at least as much money signing our own contracts with ESPN and Fox as opposed to what we've got now with those two plus the Big Ten network?
I mean, there's all these streaming services come along. We can
Sure.
sign a massive deal with Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We could get a gigantic deal. Amazon would probably jump on that. We'd be probably bet the best deal in college football right there. I mean, and their viewership would jump like crazy.
Well, I would think that Ohio State could forget scheduling any Big Ten teams in their schedule. The Big Ten would not allow any of their teams to schedule Ohio State. So that would be shut off from them. Maybe the Pac-12 would be shut off from them because the Big Ten and the Pac-12, of course, are in bed together. So the Big Ten may say, Pac-12, you got to shut off Ohio State. I don't know.
Well, we could play a couple SEC teams. There's several teams we could play at home. I mean, there's a lot of teams. I mean,
you got to schedule 12 games.
Well, you got 12 games. So we schedule Notre Dame. We schedule somebody out of the SEC.
If they want to schedule, they all these teams have to be willing to schedule, and this has to be every year. They're not going to schedule Notre Dame every year, I don't think. Maybe they would. I don't know. Maybe Notre Dame would want that. Maybe they would not want that. So you got to understand
I wouldn't know why they wouldn't want it, because it would be a big draw for them, especially when we get this Amazon contract.
Well, you would also understand that once these conferences start to play conference games about the third week of the season, it's going to be tough to find teams that are available.
Well, the SEC seems to work in the Citadel and who knows who in the middle of the season down there without any problem.
That's only one game for each team, though. Like Ohio State's got to fill up 12 games. And once it hits the third or fourth week of the season, all these conferences are playing against each other.
Well, there are several independents in the country.
So Ohio State wants to play UMass and UConn?
I didn't say that. What's some of the other ones?
Well, Notre Dame, there's only 5 of them.
That'd be a big draw.
Well,
why we should start scheduling Cincinnati every year?
If they want to play every year.
Michigan State plays Michigan every year.
Sure.
I mean, I just don't see what the Big Ten brings to us. They don't give us anything. I know we can sign a bigger contract and make more money outside that.
Well, I don't.
And especially when they up.
I don't know that.
The bowls. Well,
I don't know.
You got to figure You got to figure the streaming services. That's what I'm banking on. I mean, you got if they're obviously going to go to more teams in the bowl, in the playoffs. I look for the next one to be at least 8 after the uproar over this one.
Well, that's 5 years from now, at least.
Well, it'd probably take us 3 years to get out of the Big Ten. That is, if one of the schools doesn't sue us.
Well, I would think.
I mean, what's the big?
I would think that Ohio State would.
This, Mark.
Well, let me just say this, Willie. I would think that Ohio State, to do this in some fair manner in which they wouldn't get sued, would have to say we're going to stay in the Big Ten through the end of the current TV contracts. So however long they last. So they're probably tied down for 6 or 7 years.
Well, we should be looking ahead because, I mean, what does the Big Ten do for us? We are the Big Ten. Whenever the highest rated games are always Ohio State. Ohio State's the national brand. They're like Alabama.
Most of them. Yeah.
I mean, we do not need the Big Ten. The Big Ten needs us. And if they don't think they do, then let's see how their next TV contract comes out if we're not in it. I just think that the officials at the Ohio State University should be looking at that.
Well,
and come up with some kind of plan down the future.
I understand your point. I think it's a good relationship, and I think they need each other. They don't need each other. I think they're better off. The Big Ten's better off with Ohio State. I also think Ohio State's better off with the Big Ten. Now, I didn't necessarily think that
we'd be better off in the SEC. Let's play some teams that give us a game. Who wants to go to a game and blow these teams out? I want to see a decent schedule. And we're never going to get a decent. I mean, the Big Ten is not. The Big Ten's. The Big Ten doesn't work for me for Ohio State in football, especially the way things out nowadays.
Well, that's another consideration. That Ohio State they've got to think about all these other sports, though. What are they going to do with all their other sports? They can't be independent.
What's Notre Dame do with all of them?
They're in the ACC. They're in the ACC. What league is going to accept Ohio State in every other sport? And then does Ohio State
probably?
So if you're putting Ohio State in the, if you're going to put them in the SEC, I just don't think that that's a good cultural, geographic connection for Ohio State to be playing in the SEC.
We need to do something. I mean, the Big Ten is just not. Big Ten is just. But I think it's just a disaster for Ohio State. We could be making more money everywhere, somewhere else. There's problems. If we can sign a contract, say with someone like Amazon, there would be another league jumping at the chance to take our other sports. It's not like our other sports are bad. Our other sports are fairly good. Now, in the SEC, we'd have trouble with the spring sports, with the softball, but the rest of our sports could hang in there with them. I mean, I don't know if anybody in the SEC even has lacrosse. Maybe they do. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think Ohio State's officials should be looking at down the road. And I think if we're going to stay in the Big Ten, we need to figure out some of these. Like Amazon is an untapped billion-dollar program just waiting to get into college football. They just got in on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have Amazon, you don't get Thursday night football. So they're going to have they increased their fees like $2 a year or something. So if you pay by the year, so. I don't know. I think down the road, that's going to be the way to go. That's just my own opinion. I don't expect very many people agree, but that's just how I feel about it. I mean, that's just how I want the Big Ten really doesn't do it. We play Michigan every year. I mean, it's kind of old after 80 years.
Well, that's going to be a big drawback. You're talking
that'll
about.
Be a big drawback for Fox because that's the biggest game Fox sells.
Sure. Well, it used to be ABC. Now it's Fox, but you're looking at the most watched regular season college football game of the year, most years, and it's no longer going to exist. So you're kind of tearing
Well,
up
if we're not in
the
the Big
fabric of
Ten,
college football.
well, if we're not in the Big Ten, there probably could be pressure from Fox to have Michigan still play us. I don't know why they wouldn't, unless the league tells them they can't to. I mean, and I don't know why they do that. Hell, they play Notre Dame plays 3 or 4 Big Ten teams every year. They used to play Michigan every year till Jim Harbaugh became coach, and he wiped out that thing. Right, the first thing he did was wipe out the series with Notre Dame. So,
Well, I got to think that the
didn't-
Big Ten, if they've got any spine, if Ohio State leaves, they're going to tell their members, do not play Ohio State. So nobody's going to play Ohio State from the Big Ten, including Michigan.
well,
Why would they?
but that's the Big Ten's loss financially.
It's Ohio State's loss.
And if Ohio
too.
State can sign another TV deal with somebody, then it's not a loss for Ohio State. It's only a loss for the Big Ten. Without Ohio State in the Big Ten, their TV deal is I don't know. I imagine it'd drop 30, 40% probably. If not, maybe not quite that much. I mean, maybe they can replace Michigan, and Michigan can play Michigan State at the end of the year.
I will.
And I like our chances go.
I'll have to serve this
Go
up
ahead.
to our Ohio State boys on Wednesday. So if you're in the chat, you drop me a line to
and I only called to put this up because nobody was calling today, and I thought I'd get something going.
Yeah, well, I argued with enough people today, I guess. Yeah, serve
Well,
that
I'm not
up.
trying to argue with you, Mark.
Oh, I know you're not. No, and I'm not arguing with you because I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that would hurt the Big Ten. There's no question about that. Just like Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, that would be damaging to the Big Ten. I just know Ohio State might have some issues trying to schedule teams, and I don't know how much they would be able to draw from TV contracts and online contracts versus what they make right now. And I guess they've got to find a home for their other sports. They can't have all their sports be independent. I don't think that they want to try to manage.
I understand that. But if they can get an online deal with one of these big Amazon or one of these other people, somebody's going to get a deal with them. You can bet your life somebody's going to get a big deal with them. Or maybe they're going to get a big deal with one of the leagues. But you might start out with maybe a Monday night SEC game of the week, something like that.
Yeah.
It's just the Big Ten and Ohio State needs to jump in there and get on board. They need to get a committee going and decide what's the best thing to do, how we can make the most money. That's just my opinion. So thanks for taking my call, Mark. You can talk to the other Ohio State people about it and see what they think.
We will serve it up on Wednesday, Willie.
Okay, great. I'll be calling in and talking to you then. But
all right, Willie.
Thanks a lot for taking my call.
Of course.
You do a great job.
Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Yeah. I don't know how much that would damage Ohio State, because if they can rebound and be an independent in football like Notre Dame, but Notre Dame does not, if the figures that I get back are accurate, I haven't done extensive research on this, but I think most people assume that Notre Dame is independent and has a contract with NBC because they make more money than the other programs that are tied to a conference TV contract. That used to be kind of the common thought. But actually, if you look at the numbers, based on everything that I've seen and heard, is that Notre Dame doesn't make as much. Northwestern makes more money as a member of the Big Ten with their ESPN, ABC, Fox, Big Ten Network TV contract than Notre Dame does from NBC. So if Ohio State's got to go out there and fend for itself, I know that Ohio State's huge and popular and all that, but I know that it will be difficult scheduling teams in October and November. Falconer X. I don't love the transfer portal and NIL, but they are the reality. Schools that embrace them will benefit. The others will be lost. Falconer X, thank you so much for the contribution. Well, Rob, I view it just like you stated right there. There should be rules, NIL, transfer portal, but enforcement is impossible, especially with the NIL. Much like what goes on with college football right now. How much cheating's going on, how much cheating's caught. 10%, 5%, 20%, whatever it is. But you at least have the rules in place. Programs get caught. They have to face the penalty. How many people are speeding on the expressway? Go to your nearest expressway. How many people are speeding? Like excessively speeding. How many of them are caught? 5%, 20%, whatever it is, but they have to pay the penalty if they get caught. All right, I am going to go to the bottom of the chat and catch up with all of you and take it from there. Well, first, Falconer X. Appreciate you being here. We can't fight 40-year-old battles. Sure we can. That's why we're here, Falconer X. Oh boy, here we are. We're here during Chris's phone call. I'm not going to post most of this. This is tremendous. Dot, 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 dot. We'll put Jay Morris on there. I don't know how to pronounce your handle there. Noamahe. Nomahe. BYU played a couple teams that had above 500 records, but their schedule was awful. They played Michigan 6-6 in a bowl game. Not their fault. That's who the Holiday Bowl went out to grab as a attraction, a 6-5 Michigan team to play in a bowl game. But yeah, BYU didn't play any good teams to kind of justify their national championship in 1984. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I believe like Air Force was 7-3-1. That might have been the best team they played, along with the worst Michigan team from 1968 to to Rich Rod, 2008, 2009. That was the worst Michigan team over a 40-year span that they played in 1984. John, I wish I would have seen your comment there at the time. Porter Osborne, yes, Florida was on probation in 1984. Yes, they were. They did not play in a bowl game. They went to 9-1-1. Falconer X. I want to start a GoFundMe to build a time machine to go back 40 years and study the turf advantages of each school. Oh, man. We went to a new low with the turf benefiting one team and not the other with 12 unassisted tackles. All right, Joey. West Virginia and, of course, Nebraska and Florida State played for the national championship, pretty much played for the national championship in the Orange Bowl. Nebraska lost a really close game. They attempted a field goal, didn't even come close in the final seconds. Joey, I God bless you, Joey. You know we love you, Joey, but those other three teams, meaning Nebraska, Florida, and Florida State, were so much better than West Virginia. I think we got our dose of West Virginia in the Sugar Bowl against Florida. What, 41-7? Yeah, you did not want to play Nebraska. You did not want to play Nebraska. Jerry, good to see you. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you emailing your Mike Bellotti pictures or whomever was the source of those pictures. Thank you so much for that. Yes, Bo Nix is 0-3 against Georgia. All right, we've got our George comments connecting Stetson Bennett to Bob Dylan. Falconer X, you can call me anytime. You know that. Falconer X, yes, 100% Ohio State. Go Indy. Don't know what that is for, but Falconer X, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Best team in Ohio is Cincinnati, according to our guy, Gory Boggs. Ooh, okay, this is an interesting question right here. Centerpoint Media. Hey, Mark, which schools have benefited the most from relocating conferences? Give me your list, please. Well, I can't speak financially, although we know that the SEC and the Big Ten make the most money. And the last two sports seasons, football seasons, the Big Ten has made slightly more than the SEC. but they make far more than the other conferences. Off the top of my head, it was something in the range of Big Ten SEC in the $70 million per school range. Or was that per school? Or was that total? Per school total. Shoot. Anyway, the Big Ten and the SEC were in the $70 million range for football, talking television revenue. And then I think that was just television revenue. That might have been total revenue. So that might have been per team. Anyway, 70 million SEC Big Ten. Then it drops to like in the 30s. ACC, Big 12, Pac-12 was in the high 20s. So you got to take that into consideration. So in Nebraska leaving the Big 12, going to the Big 10, they make more money. Has it worked out on the field? No. They played in the last 2 Big 12 championship games and were in the running for Big 12 championships. They were extremely competitive in the Big 12, and in the Big 10 following the first couple seasons have not been. But if we just stick to football, again, Maryland Rutgers, they competed in the Big East and the ACC. They're not competing in the Big 10, but financially it works out for them. It was a great move for Texas A&M. They haven't won anything yet, but they had a nice season under Johnny Manziel, and they had a good season 2 years ago at 9-1, top 5 in the SEC, and we see what they're doing now. And part of that is because they are in the SEC, and the recruiting has been, even before this NIL kicked in, tremendous for Texas A&M. So Texas A&M, it has yet to show itself on the field with a championship, but Texas A&M moving from the Big 12 to the SEC has been really good for them. Missouri makes tons more money. Do they compete? No, but they did win the SEC East their first 2 years, or their second and third years. So that's who it's worked out for. I don't know that it's really worked out for Colorado going to the Pac-12. Of course, Utah moving up in class, TCU moving up in class from group of 5 conferences to the big boys has been good for them. Going way back, Arkansas and South Carolina certainly benefit from being in the SEC over being an independent in South Carolina's case and the defunct Southwest Conference. But if we're looking at the last 10 or 12 years, financially, it's worked out for anybody joining the Big Ten. Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska. On the field, it's paying off both financially and in recruiting for Texas A&M. So Willie took quite the backlash from people saying that Ohio State should stay in the Big Ten. Wolf 58 here says the views reflected by this caller do not reflect the views of most Ohio State fans. I think Ohio State and the Big Ten are just synonymous. Like, I do not want to see Ohio State not in the Big Ten. I think the school, the football program, loses much of its identity. It's been a Big Ten school forever with a huge rivalry with Michigan, other rivalries with the rest of the conference. I just think it's in the fabric. Big Ten, Ohio State. And I think it. So, Willie, the thing that I did not point out in listening to your take is that the Big Ten makes the most money, not by much over the SEC, and it's basically even, but the Big Ten has made a little bit more money than the SEC the last few seasons. And Ohio State gets that money to go off on its own. And especially as Porter would say after this particular season, when Ohio State didn't necessarily blow out the likes of Nebraska and Penn State, and of course lost to Michigan by 15 points. All right. We've got somebody with some stats here. Joey says average TV viewership in 2018 for a West Virginia game was 2.47 million, Miami 1.6 million, Florida State 2.07 million, Pitt 1.98 million, Virginia Tech 2 million. Now someone tell me that West Virginia brings nothing to the ACC. Okay. I'd have to look into that to verify the numbers. I did come across a website a few months ago that I needed to bookmark, and I did not. I should be able to find it again. They had the TV ratings for every college football game every season. And I wanted to do some comparisons, look at conference comparisons, program comparisons. It's a little difficult for me to believe that West Virginia averaged almost 2.5 million viewers per game in 2018 and Miami only 1.6. But Joey, you've got the numbers right there. Again, that is a bit hard for me to believe. I'm trying to think who West Virginia would have played out of conference in 2018 versus Miami playing. They played Wisconsin in a bowl game. In 2018, they played LSU, the first game of the season, and that had monster numbers. That was a exclusive game. Falcon Rex, Ohio State should go to the SEC for lacrosse. Yeah, and a little wrestling would be good for the SEC as well. Bring that wrestling flavor to the SEC. I don't know if they've got tennis in the Big Ten. Do they have tennis programs in the Big Ten? Tennis was huge. Well, let me put it this way. When I was covering the SEC, the tennis programs in the SEC were ridiculously good. Yeah, Porter very much pushing back against Ohio State, leaving the Big Ten. Would Ohio State survive? Would they be good? Ohio State arguably, I'm not saying that they do. There are other schools that could certainly challenge in regards to popularity, and we know who those schools are. But if you look at TV ratings, Ohio State has an argument to say that they've got a bigger following than anyone. An argument. Again, I'm not saying that this is a slam dunk. Not saying that they do for sure, but they are certainly in the top 5 in terms of viewership on TV. The Big Ten and the SEC rule the ratings on TV. And most of those Big Ten games do involve Ohio State. There might be, of course, a Big Ten championship game if it does not involve Ohio State, which has only been the case this year. And then you got to go back to 2016. Most of the Big Ten games that rate other than Ohio State, Michigan State, only when Michigan State's really good, like this last year, Michigan State, Penn State. And if there's like a Penn State, Iowa, Penn State, Wisconsin games when teams are good. But the rest of it, if you look at the top 10 to 20 to 25 games of college football each and every season, all the Big Ten games are going to involve Ohio State, except for the games that I just mentioned. The SEC may be a little bit more balanced. Maybe a slice of Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M. Exploring with Ben, thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. And I guess that's about it for Exploring with Ben. Appreciate that so much. Best way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Thumbs up for the stream, everyone. Appreciate that so much. Go to Amazon. When you go to Amazon, I should say, hit the link. Grab that link that we provide in the description section of any of the videos. If you would grab that link, put it somewhere where you will remember it, and it doesn't cost you a penny. So think about this. If you spend $100 on Amazon and you go to my link, you're still going to spend $100 on Amazon. It's the same thing. You go through my link to get onto Amazon. That's all it is. It's the same shopping experience for you. Doesn't cost you a penny. If you spend $100, I get maybe 3, maybe 6, maybe 2, depending on the product. But that doesn't come out of your pocket. That comes out of Amazon's pocket. So please consider grabbing the Amazon link and using it when you shop on Amazon. Also, we would like to get sponsors here. We can definitely let you know how you can benefit by sponsoring us here at the Voice of College Football, whether that be on the main channel or any one of the team channels. I think Eric is the guy I'm indebted to for not only Oregon, but Washington State, Stanford, and UCLA helmets. We've got our team live streams launching again on Tuesday with Iowa and Nebraska. Rob J. learned a lot about 1984. Unfortunately, Rob, what you need to do is dismiss about everything that was said about 1984 because most of it was not reality. All right, good stuff. Appreciate everybody being here on a Sunday afternoon. Keep it locked in here at the Voice of College Football. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. We may be live on Monday, definitely on Tuesday, twice with Iowa and Nebraska at 5:30 and 7 Eastern time. But again, we may go live tomorrow. I'm working on national championships and I'm working on all-time program rankings. I looked at national championships yesterday, and you know what? Just since 1970, and once we start to count national championships, understand that teams started to claim national championships in 1869. I went back to 1869, and you know what was going on in 1869? There were like 4 games played. I'm not talking about each team playing 4 games. I'm talking about 4 total games played. Like somebody was 2-0, somebody was 1-1, somebody's 0-2. There's your games. So we are not counting national championships from 1869. You got to get like into the 19 teens or 20s until you've got a reasonable semblance of games that you can measure. And so we might take it up to the poll era and go from there, or maybe the last 100 years of national championships. But just since 1970, I counted that 18 of the seasons since 1970. So that would be, we've had 52 seasons since 1970. 18 of those, the national championship should be altered. That doesn't mean I'm taking national championships away from certain teams. In some cases, I am. But other teams should get a share of a national championship. Since 1970, 18 of those votes are screwed up. Yes, John, you did learn that Wisconsin somehow had something to do with the 1984 national championship, even though they played nobody involved in the 1984 national championship scenario. Joey, thank you so much for being here. Everybody else here at the Voice of College Football, we will catch you on Monday. We've got a ton of great content coming out on Monday and then into Tuesday with our 2 live streams from Iowa and Nebraska. We will see you soon.